Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about breaking into cybersecurity in 2026. So, a lot of interest around cybersecurity, a lot of things. You see it on TikTok, you see it on YouTube, which is how you found me, I assume. But let's talk a little bit about why are you here? What are the personality traits typically we see for people getting into IT or cybersecurity? Generally curious, you like to investigate things, collaborative, communicative, right? So you need to be able to talk to people, ask questions, a problem solver, eager to learn, lots to learn, always new things happening, always new exciting technologies. So you need to be able to learn. You're going to learn, kind of do that. Career expectations, there's a lot of opportunities in the IT field or in cybersecurity to upskill and advance your career. So going back to the eager to learn piece, lots of skills, and the more skills you have, the more marketable you'll be, the more you're worth, right? There's many different paths. We're going to talk about a few of those today, depending on your skills and your interest, right? So you may like networking, you may hate networking. So we'll talk about a little about those things. A lot of companies have flexible work schedules, work from home. I work from home. A lot of my team works from home. So a lot of remote roles or hybrid roles, right? So you can be working for a company in Chicago and live in Florida. So very flexible in terms of hours and things like that. So why cybersecurity? What is cybersecurity? We hear a lot about that. So really what we're talking about is this, you'll hear this term as you get into it, the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? So confidentiality, ensuring your data is secure. Only people who need to have access to the data. Integrity, we want to make sure that those records are reliable, right? So think of your bank. You deposit $10, you want to make sure $10 is in there. You want to make sure there's not $9 in there, and the bank wants to make sure it's not 11. Now, I've never had it be 11, sometimes 9, right? So we want to make sure. So that is integrity. We want to make sure that the transactions are there. And availability, we want to make sure it's available, right? So the data is available when needed by the company organization, by the end user, by you. You go to the bank, you want to be able to get your money out, check your account status. You want it to be available. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So why is it so important? It's crucially global necessity, right? As everything has become electronic, you think about all the places that we see digital transactions happening, right? So you go to the store, you're swiping your credit card, right? You're doing a point of sale device. Even if you're paying cash, it's a point of sale device. You're scanning your items out. You go to the farmer's market. They're taking payments on a smartphone, right? Lots of apps to do that. So again, those are all digital transactions happening. So that's everywhere integrated in our world. Wireless, Wi-Fi. Your phone is connected to, your smartphones are connected to the internet. All your devices. Are you watching me on a wireless network? Or you're watching me on a network right now? It's an interesting, rewarding field. There's a lot of continuous education in this profession. We've talked about new technologies, new items coming out, new ways of doing business, new technologies, AI we'll talk a little bit about. There's a lot of out-of-the-box solutions like firewalls and antivirus, and those things are no longer sufficient, right? We're talking about sophisticated cyber attackers on the march, coming after that data, coming after that integrity, right? Coming after that availability. We just talked about it. So again, ongoing technological developments, additions to things, users and their systems actually are the biggest threats, right? So unfortunately, the weakest link in security are people, right? Regulation and compliance laws continue to change, continue to get harder and harder to comply with. So a lot of folks have heard of HIPAA. There's a lot of other ones, right? You're a public company. There's SOX compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley, making sure your digital transactions and your following practices, right? So organizations have to do these things. Companies won't do business with you unless you're doing them, right? There could be some legal ramifications. Without a cybersecurity program, a business cannot appropriately defend itself from these threats, right? So who are those folks? That is someone in the cybersecurity field, right? So as we talk a little bit more about this, going into cybersecurity and into the career paths, let's set some realistic expectations, right? You're going to require some IT foundation, some knowledge of how things work, right? Patience is required, right? The job market's changed significantly. So the average job search for the first role takes about 6 months to 9 months. And some dedication from you on upskilling, getting some skills. We'll talk about a couple of those things later on. Lifelong learning, again, things change every few months. Lots of things happening. Creates a lot of opportunities, also creates sort of an opportunity for you to continue to learn. So curiosity is one of your most valuable assets. Right. So let's talk a little bit about the landscape, the job market landscape. So right now there's 4.8 million unified jobs listed globally. There is a shortfall of cybersecurity professionals, which grew 19% year over year. Despite record employment, 87% of organizations report moderate to critical skills gap in their security teams. So what does all that mean? It means there's opportunities to bring folks in, right, to help with that. So career opportunities, there are two things you'll hear about mainly in the cybersecurity realm. We have the red team and we have the blue team. Red team is the white hat hackers, right? So a lot of folks are very interested in red team. So you're testing the defense, you're testing the resiliency, you're an ethical hacker, you're trying to break into a company. You're searching for weaknesses and vulnerabilities. You're providing security assessments to businesses. More commonly is the blue team. You work for a company. You maintain system security. You prevent the security breaches. You monitor systems for threats. You respond to incidents. You research security technologies. We just talked about lots of changes happening. You're coming up with new ways to defend your organization. Maybe you're working on a project implementing some of those technologies. So lots and lots of careers in the blue team, also careers in the red team, but you'll hear those terms, so be aware. So some of the career opportunities, right? So security operations center analyst, SOC, right? So you monitor and manage networks, work with intrusion detection and prevention systems. What does that mean? There are systems that are looking for intrusions happening. So intrusion detection kind of goes with the name. Intrusion prevention. I see something happening, I'm going to stop it. You need people to manage, maintain, implement those systems and to make sure that organizations are running smoothly, right? So you can put these systems in. It could flag your normal business process as a intrusion and block it. So we need people to go in and manage and manipulate those systems. Network security administrator. So network administrators, right? They're responsible for management and monitoring of organizations' networks and the network security, right? So they're making sure that data is coming in, only the right data is coming in and the right data is able to go out. Cybersecurity engineer. This is really where you're keeping computer information systems secure, using controls such as access controls, user IDs, security implementations, right? So antivirus, firewalls, making sure only approved applications run on workstations. We have IT auditors. I mentioned some of those things like Sarbanes-Oxley, SOC 2, a lot of these other requirement, HIPAA, right? So somebody has to audit to make sure we're doing those things. So you have to assess the technology for potential security efficiencies, right? And you want to make sure if there's any compliance issues that get addressed, right? So a lot of these things say you must be patching your systems. You need to be backing them up, right? So an auditor makes sure that the company is doing those things and can report on those. Other career opportunities, right? So going back to that was the blue team. This is the red team. So on the red team side of the house, we have an ethical hacker, right? So you hire by an organization to legally hack into their networks, into their identity providers, such as Active Directory, Entra ID, right? Okta, these things like usernames, passwords, trying to break in, trying to find and identify weak points in the company's security systems, right? So inside of their systems, is there a way I can get in? You have vulnerability assessment analysts, right? So you hunt for critical flaws and vulnerabilities in networks, often a third-party consultant, right? So coming in and doing that. Exploitation analyst, another role like that. So identify identifies and exploits weaknesses in targeted systems and networks, crucial in offensive cyber operations, right? So that's another role that can be out there on the red team. Incident detection engineer replicate real threats to understand how they operate and how to neutralize them. So a lot of companies have this, a lot of security places. So let's just take Microsoft. Microsoft has a huge amount of incident detection engineers working on reverse engineering hacks and vulnerabilities to understand how they work so they can figure out how to put out a patch, put out a way to defend against those. So again, these are just different career roles in cybersecurity specifically, right? So how can we search for cybersecurity roles? There's a really neat website. I suggest you check it out. I will put the link in the description down below. So I like to show Cyberseek. Cyberseek is a really interesting website. It can show you career path, right? And you can kind of see in your area, job openings, skills required, what it pays, where those paths go, right? So it provides detailed descriptions of the U.S. cybersecurity kind of market. It's not all inclusive, doesn't have every job, right? But it has a good representation of it. And it really helps you kind of see what skills are needed, right? So provides some career pathways, right? So if you are a cybersecurity analyst and you want to go into a CISO, chief security information security officer, here's the skills and the kind of experience and what you'd expect and salary, etc. So it gives you a really good snapshot of averages and available positions so you can kind of weigh those things out. So again, Cyberseek is a really interesting and fun website. It's a good one to go take a look at. I've heard a lot about AI. AI is coming, right? AI is here. AI is being used, right? So really AI has a double-edged sword, right? So AI assisted attacks increased 72% last year. Phishing volume. So if you don't know what phishing is where I'm sending you, let's say, an email as an example, right? I'm asking you to give me some credential. I'm asking you to do something on a phishing email. That volume is up almost 1,300% due to generative tools, right? So we used to be able to, in the cybersecurity realm, if you've worked for companies or organizations, a lot of times they do training on this. You'd be looking for bad spelling, look for bad grammar, look for these things like that. That's become very, very difficult with the AI assistance of building out those scripts now. So when they're calling you, they're doing these AI scripts. Could be doing AI voice. Lots of things are changing in this area. So again, from a defender advantage, we're able to use this, right? So on average, we're detecting breaches 108 days faster than traditional methods. So that is an enormous boost for the defensive side. However, the offensive side, the bad guys are using it, so the good guys are also using it. So again, double-edged sword on AI technologies. Cloud first standard. This is what I tell people getting into the IT and getting into the field. Cybersecurity is essentially cloud. So 95% of all entry-level roles require some familiarity and some shared responsibility with cloud. So what does that mean, right? So cloud, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, right? So these are areas that you should become familiar with as you try to enter the field, right? So the focus really has started shifting on the perimeter. We're talking about identity, right? From firewalls to IAM, identity and access management, right? So how do you get into things as SaaS, software as a service providers, right? Software as a service, SaaS applications are being consumed by a lot of large organizations, right? So let's take an example of Workday, a huge one for HR and operations. Canvas, right? Schools use Canvas for things. So understanding AWS, IAM, or Azure AD or Entra is sort of a non-negotiable. We have to understand what it means to be logging in and being part of a group, getting permissions. So target entry roles. So SOC Analyst 1. So you're monitoring alerts, performing initial triage, most common entry point for folks starting out. Security support, help desk, right? Those are ones that are out there. So managing user access, password resets, updating security tickets. Junior GRC analyst, right? Governance risk compliance, GRC analysts help with compliance. So I mentioned SOC 2, I mentioned HIPAA, and gathering those documents and requirements, making sure that organizations are doing those things. Junior cloud security engineers, another one. Basic security settings in cloud environments, making sure we're not missing things, right? Reviewing roles, access controls, things like that. So entry level salary, this is where everybody's very interested in. Why are we in there, right? So the average junior SOC analyst role starting about $65,000, right? Junior security analyst about $68,000, cloud security associate $75,000, IT security support specialist about $55,000, right? So again, your mileage will vary. So if you're in rural Utah, it might be different than downtown Chicago or New York City, right? So regionality plays a huge role in this as well. Now, I mentioned earlier remote roles. So again, mileage will definitely vary on organizations, roles, criteria, what they want, right? So these are just sort of averages of what's out there, right? So depending where you're at for an entry level role, you're going to be in that, 70,000, 65 to 70,000 area beginning, starting out. So why do we need you? Is there so much requirement for this? So the cybersecurity industry, as mentioned earlier, is short nearly 4 million professionals. I'll put these links. You can go look at the articles in the description below. Demand for cybersecurity analysts is growing twice as fast as the workforce, right? Information security jobs are projected to grow by 32% between 2022 and 2032. We've already seen a lot of that already. That was from Forbes. Average cost of data breach in the United States is crazy, by the way. It's estimated to be around $9.48 million, right? It's up. So obviously, this is a huge issue, right? So it's not just the loss of reputation, loss of data. A lot of times there's lawsuits involved in this, right? Because you were a steward of my data. Now it's costing me money. So you need to make me whole. So again, these links will be in the description. You can go take a look at them yourself, but very interesting stuff. Why there's such a demand for this, right? So let's talk a little about skill acquisition and proof. So there are some foundational certifications you can go look at. So I usually recommend starting with the CompTIA Security Plus. This is sort of the gold standard of an entry-level certification. It's a good baseline for you. It gives you the fundamentals of cybersecurity, gives you the fundamentals of networking, gives you a lot of basics. So the data's out there, some really good classes, really good course material on this, really good free materials out there. So lots of really good areas for you to go look at. The ISC Squared is another organization. I'm part of ISC Squared. I have a CISSP. I've been an exam writer. This is a really good free course. Free is the key word. So iscsquared.org. So isc2.org. Check it out. There's a CC certification out there designed for absolute beginners, focusing on operations and legal aspects of it. It's a great program you can work through. So I would highly, again, I'll put the links in the description down below. AWS Cloud Practitioner, this is essential for understanding the shared responsibility of the cloud model, right? So getting into cloud and going out and doing that kind of stuff. So again, these are great starter certifications for you to go take a look at. In 2026, hiring managers don't care what you know. They care what you've actually done in a live environment, right? So there's a lot of folks out there that've got a lot of credentials, right? But it's more like, what can you do? I'm going to put you hands on keyboard. This is moving away from the theory and like going and doing things, right? So if you don't have hands-on experience, my recommendation would be to do a home lab. There is not enough. You need to build a playground where you can go learn by breaking stuff, right? And fixing them. So go get some hands-on, see how things work. Lots of really good cloud resources out there. A lot of good free resources out there. Microsoft has a whole career series. So does Amazon. So does Google, right? You can virtualize an Active Directory environment. Go play with that. Users, groups, creating that stuff. It's beneficial to learn to do these things, right? There's also freeware out there for a SIEM, right? So SIEM software is bringing together all logs and things like that. So inside of um, entry level roles, some of the things that we monitor will be a SIEM, right? So this is a security information and event management software that most organizations use to bring in all these different things and give you alerts and give you action, visibility into what's happening in the network. Vulnerability scanners. There's a whole bunch of those out there, like Nessus. That's a freeware one. There's a lot of free tools out there to kind of go look at this stuff. Do this stuff in a lab. Do not do it at your place of work. Do not do it at the public library. You will get in trouble. Don't get in trouble. But go build a home lab where you can go play with these things. Start seeing what they do. So you want to determine your path. Some key aspects to keep in mind as you look at this stuff. You want to make sure that this certifications that you pick align kind of with your goals. So if you really enjoy networking, look at the certifications for networking. So Cisco has the CCNA, which is the gold standard, right? Cisco Certified Network Associate is sort of the gold standard for networking. If you're interested in doing networking, start there, right? And look at your certification path as things that align to your career goals. Begin by looking into less general, more technically focused certifications that will highlight your experience, right? Certifications typically map to specific job roles. If you go back to CyberSec, you'll see a lot of those skills in there, wanted certifications that they want. You will continue to see things like the CompTIA Security Plus certification. You'll see that as a baseline. And again, gold standard entry level certification for cybersecurity professionals. That's great. So keep that in mind as you go through this and you start choosing what to do, where you want to go, etc. So why is this such a big deal for organizations, right? How do the breaches affect organizations? There's a financial impact. There's reputation loss of productivity, right? I can't work. I'm paying my employees to sit around because the systems are down. Could have legal liability. I mentioned that earlier, right? So you are the stewards of my data and you've lost it. Right? So now you're going to have to probably make amends. You have to pay. You have to do credit monitoring services. You have to do something because you failed to protect my data, right? So that's a legal liability. It's going to cost you money on top of the financial impact, the reputation loss, the loss of productivity. Business continuity. Can I bring the business back? Right? What do I need to do to keep the business running? Right. So in my career, I can tell you I've worked on a couple of businesses where they were not able to maintain business continuity after a massive loss. Right. So they had a cyber incident. They were not able to recover quickly enough. And what they were able to recover wasn't enough. And within about 6 months, they were out of business. So that does happen. It is a very big concern. Scale of a breach and impact. So the impact of a breach from an individual, from you to a organization, a business can vary, right? And the size of businesses can vary, right? So the number of systems, the amount of data, the consequences can be very dependent, type of business and its size, right? So if I have a manufacturing plant and my systems are taken down, I can't manufacture my product, but there's not a whole lot of user data there. It's instructions on how to build, widget A or whatever, right? So the breach of a single individual's data could negatively impact, you. Doesn't impact, and maybe your family. Doesn't really impact your neighbor, the rest of people that work for your company, right? It's not a huge impact in that sense. It's in a big impact for you, but not for everyone else. The larger the company, the larger the potential breach, right? So the larger company you work for, the bigger the breach is, right? Because bigger companies tend to provide a lot more services, right? So as you get into those services, you will have different business impact to each one of those different types of services the organization offers. Proportionally, these larger breaches will have much larger impact on the company and its customer, right? So breaches on critical infrastructure, There's a whole bunch of studies out there on this. Colonial Pipeline is probably the most famous, from a critical infrastructure that was out in the East Coast. There's some really fun stuff if you want to go look up that one. So we're talking about power, gas, water. How do they impact folks, right? So that Colonial Pipeline impacted the East Coast, and the pipeline was basically taken out, right? So with a cyber attack, and that affected gas prices, natural gas, gasoline prices, right? Because a pipeline was being shipped out there, which caused shortages, price spikes, all kinds of issues out there. So this can potentially threaten an economy or people's lives, right? So if I take out power for an extended period of time, I can be impacting hospitals, right? Or water facilities, or right? Maybe you have specialized medical equipment you need, right? If there's no power, you can't use those devices. So that can now become an issue for people's lives. So activity. Take some time. Again, this will be in the description down below. Go to Have I Been Pwned? So it's a really interesting website. You put in your email address, it'll show you any breach that your email is involved in. If you don't want to use your own, maybe use your friends, use your loved ones. It's super interesting to see kind of what data has been, what has happened to your email. Where have you been involved in it? So Have I Been Pwned is a really fun activity. Go out, click on that link in the description, take a few minutes. It's really interesting to go kind of see what data has been leaked about you, right? So it wasn't you leaking it was the company that, or a set of companies that have that data, right? So as an example, you registered on target.com. Target was targeted, which has happened a lot, by the way. And your data has been leaked, right? It's linked to your email. So that would show like, hey, Target breach. Here's the information. Here's what they potentially was exfiltrated, taken from Target about you, about that ID. So it could be your name, your phone number, your email address, obviously, and maybe your address. So, and depending on where that email address was used, very, very interesting stuff. So this is a free site. Go check it out. Really, really interesting and fun. So circle back on what are our primary concerns with cybersecurity. Again, it's the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is making sure that only people who should see the data can see the data. Again, this would be like you. Only people who can go see your personal information is you, or anybody that's authorized to have seen that data. Integrity, we're making sure that data has been unchanged, right? So the data in our streams is what we think it should be. It hasn't been manipulated. Again, going back to the example of the bank, right? I deposited $10 in the bank. It's not $9. It's $10, and the bank wants to make sure it's not $11, right? So we're making sure there's integrity in the transactions and availability. It is available when we need it, right? Reliable access to information. Again, going back to my hospital example from earlier, you're having some issues in the hospital. If I can't get the patient data, it becomes very dangerous to treat you. I don't know if you're on other drugs. I don't know if you're on other medications. I don't know what your treatment schedule was. I could be giving you something that could potentially cause harm. So we don't want to do that. So we want to have our availability of our data when we need it. So again, drivers, with all that said, why are businesses so interested in this, right? So why are businesses investing so heavily in cybersecurity? And this is really to protect the company's finances, right? Maintain operational continuity, compliance requirements, right? Changes in workforce dynamics, a lot of shifting to remote work, as I mentioned earlier, these roles. So there is a lot of reasons businesses are investing heavily in information security, in cybersecurity. So your 12-month roadmap, what should you be doing? So I recommend, and I know I get a lot of hate for this, but LinkedIn, getting a LinkedIn presence out there. Post about what you've learned. Connect with 5 different people, some recruiters, some analysts, some other people in the industry, right? Local communities, lots of good groups out there. They're free. Go find a local chapter of, a DEF CON, local OWASP. There's lots of free groups out there, and that I always say is kind of the hidden job market. You're networking people to get to know you. I like that guy. I like that gal. You're looking for a role. Great. You're here, shared interest. I got an opportunity to know you. I can move you right along the process. So again, this is a really, really good way of thinking about this. Again, the hidden job market in networking with people, getting to know folks still plays a huge role in most industries, right? Most different things. Think about some key portfolio projects. So a threat detection project, right? Install that SIEM, right? Get that security information event management system up and running on a virtual machine in cloud, right? Generate some attacks with a free software called Kali Linux and document how you detected those and mitigated those. Some really interesting things you can do with that. From the cloud side, you can go build a secure S3 bucket that's an object store in Amazon, or get an Azure storage account with strict IAM policies. Remember, we talked about IAM earlier, right? Identity account access management and enable logging. Go look at what that is. Get some hands-on keyboard. Go do a couple of these different projects. These are free. You can download these things and start doing them. I think it'll actually really give you a good understanding of what it looks like, where to go, how to do it. Some really fun stuff there. Lots of learning opportunity. Again, this is all about upskilling. So from 0 to hire in 12 months, what should you be looking at? So months 1 to 3, some foundations like Network Plus, Security Plus, building your first PC lab, your free lab, cloud lab, going to kind of put some pieces together, start playing around, start breaking some things, and then having to go to fix them. Do that cloud and SIEM, right? So get AWS, get install Waza, start some different tools there. Lots of really fun stuff out there. Some really good suggestions from the vendors like Microsoft, like AWS. They've got some really good labs you can go and just play with, right? So within the 7 to 9 months, do some projects, build a project portfolio on GitHub. So go look at GitHub. You can post a lot of your projects. You can share that stuff out. People can look at it. You can look at it. You can share with potential employers, right? Resume, LinkedIn overhaul, lots of AI tools to help you here, but start building that portfolio. Execution, I would say daily applications, do some interview prep, do some local networking. I would just say continue to, as you start doing these things, continue to learn, continue to look at videos, stop by my content, right? Stop by other folks' content out there. I'm going to continue to build some things. But again, there's a lot of things you can do from free resources to get yourself familiarized with the different types of roles out there, different technologies that are out there. Lots of really interesting videos on setting things up. You can go play with it yourself and understand it, right? So interview prep framework, I always tell people understand the fundamentals, right? Technical areas to kind of understand what is cybersecurity, why this company, the threat analysis, explain some like maybe the cyber kill chain. Tell me about a time you solved a hard bug. There's a lot of different types of interview things you can do as you go through these things. Again, most of these terms will start making some sense to you as you go through some of this. And look at the behavioral focus things. Tell me about a problem that you solved. How do you handle a high stress incident situation? What do you do? How do you stay up to date with trends in the cyber industry or in IT? These are kind of things that you'll see out there, and that will help you on your journey. So let's start that journey. When's the best time to start? The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time to start is now. So stay curious, stay persistent. Again, join a security group, join a security Discord, spin up a Linux VM, follow some industry leaders out there, and you'll have hopefully some success. If this content was helpful, please like and subscribe. Again, there'll be some details down there. Feel free to post your questions, comments, concerns. I'll do my best to take and answer those things. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.